Well, welcome back to the show. Today is a little bit different. I'm here with a special guest, someone who's actually helped me in my journey on this political commentary from day one, Mr. Joel Jammal. Joel, thanks for being here. He's up here for a conference, so I quickly snagged him. Joel is the host of the ARC podcast. He is the head of sort of Turning Point Australia here in our country. He's an activist, a journalist, a political commentator. He's got a lot going on, and he's a lot younger than me. Would you believe it? Joel, thank you for being with us.
No, Brady, pleasure to be here, mate. I've been looking forward to it and happy to help any podcasters that are out there. So, no, thank you so much.
That's awesome. I think anyone who's watching this channel, I'm guessing they would know who you are, but I want to just go straight back to the start to give them a bit of context. Like I said, you're an activist, conservative voice in Australia, doing incredibly well at it. I think you're getting well over 1 million views across your platforms every single week. You're a really prominent voice on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube. You're doing great work with your podcast. You're having really good success in election campaigns as well. Let's go back to the start. Where did the drive to get into the political space come from?
Yeah, look, I won't go back to the whole history, but in short, I used to be in the construction industry much like yourself. I was working in construction for about 9 years. Bit during school, I left and ended up doing a degree, property economics. I was an assistant development manager. By the time COVID came around in 2020, I lost my job due to the lockdowns. The banks got spooked. They weren't approving jobs. So a lot of the jobs I was doing tenders for didn't go through. And as a result, I basically ended up getting thrust into talking about politics, not just because it was everything was, going on at the time, but I happened to be following politics at the time and teaching people in short, who's punching you, why they're punching you, how can you punch back politically? And so it just came naturally. This is how you breathe your values into politics. That's just sort of come naturally to me. I do find, I think you can tell I enjoy what I do.
Yeah, yep.
And in short, 4 weeks into the show when I started in mid-2020, unfortunately, I lost my dad due to cancer. He was getting cancer treatment in Mexico. He couldn't get out of the country, so he couldn't get these blood transfusions, and then it basically killed him because chemo is just a substandard way to treat cancer. And, once that happens, I mean, anyone that loses their dad at like 22, 23, it's like, your world collapses, your career's gone, your world collapse, your siblings and their partners have all lost their jobs. I think between them, they lost like 8 jobs, something crazy, because some of them had double jobs. And then, it's like, your world's collapsing around you. The churches are silent. The politicians who you looked up to, like John Howard, John Anderson, they've let you down. Even Tony Abbott for a while, he was quiet in 2020, 2021. And it's like, well, is someone going to set that right? And at that point, it's sort of like, well, if you're waiting for someone, you're that person.
Yeah.
And, be measured, talk about it with people that you like and trust, but move and provide solutions and values to people so that they can understand these are the tools I need. This is how I can make a political difference. These are why I'm being punched. And so, we fought 9 elections and 1 referendum in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
I did come into the Turning Point Australia brand, which is officially associated with Charlie Kirk from the US. Charlie Kirk, for those of you who don't know, he secured the swing states for Donald Trump in the 2024 election. And that's what we're basically about here. And I really enjoy what I do. I think it's important. I think it's the missing link that we have in politics. And that's why I dedicate so much of my time to do it. So I only run on donations. I really do what I do because I love it. And I love this country. And my family came here in the 60s, and it's important to us that, we give back to the country. We have a lot to owe the country. And I think if everyone understood that concept, then Australia would be in a much better place.
So it was birthed from COVID.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
How many people do you think are saying that right now in this country? Their desire to see the country change has come from what happened in COVID. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Turning Point Australia and what that looks like, what it's trying to achieve. But I want to ask you a simple question, because we just mentioned there that the tools and kind of how it started. What would you say is your mission? Like, what is actually your mission? So the people who are watching, the conservatives, the people who are just sort of starting to align with traditional conservative values, or even just common sense. At the moment, I call the right, it's just the common sense side, because there's no safe landing on the left right now. So what would you say is your mission with everything you do, your podcast and Turning Point Australia?
In short, it's about informing, educating, and basically teaching people how to punch back,
Right.
enlisting them in this fight. And I think that's important. It's, as I said earlier, you've got to teach people, who's punching you, why are they punching you, what's the driving factor, and how can you, Brody, you and your audience punch back politically? How can you have the tools to actually go out there and do that? Because, I'm not going to dictate to my audience. You don't dictate to your audience. You're just, you're just observing things and noticing that things are getting different in the country. But at the end of the day, giving people tangible tools to push back against the government that wants more of their money, more control over you and what you do in your bedroom, more control over what goes in your kids' heads in schools and whatever. These are the things that we need to give our audience value. We need to give them tools to actually push back. Otherwise, they're just, trying to catch up, and they're constantly just trying to keep their head above water with all of the bills that are going up. Everything's getting more expensive, and that's what people tell me. They say, Joel, I've seen your clips. I trust you.
Yeah.
I want to, I want you to basically literally tell me how to vote in my area. I trust you.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't realize, the previous election, I did a video on the how to vote cards. They all came from Joel's and Turning Point Australia. They did some actually incredible work. So a little bit about we know that you give people tools. Why don't we go straight to it now and just highlight, what do you think some of the biggest areas where we are getting punched from? Obviously, we know taxes and control and free speech attacks. What are some of the things that you guys at Turning Point Australia are really focusing on now?
Yeah, look, we have a political problem. We need political solutions at the end of the day. So getting politicians out that want more control over your lives is what I'm all about in simple terms. I just got out of a taxi on the way here, an Uber driver. He asked me, "Oh, what are you doing? You're looking a bit smart to be dressed in Brisbane. It's a little bit hot at the moment."
You do look very sharp, by the way.
Thank you.
I had a hat on and just a t-shirt. I thought, no, I better put a. Yeah,
It's Joel. It's Joel. That's just how I am, man. And so I said to him, "Yeah, look, I'm going for an interview, and I'm basically talking about how you can get government out of your lives and keep more of your money, mate. Who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want that?"
How did he respond?
He said, "Mate, I think that's a pretty popular job."
Yeah.
I was like, that's the funny thing about populism. It's quite popular.
Yeah.
And yeah, look, the government's, it's a bit like what Packer said, it's not like the government's spending your money very well.
So why would I donate more?
Why would you donate more? It's a crack. We really need a Packer right now to
it's
get
a crack. Yeah.
I think that's what's missing in Australia. But in the absence of that, what I'm trying to do with, I'm a young guy, I'm 28, I observe what's going on. I try to provide people election resources so that they can make a more informed decision about which party or which candidate to vote for.
Yeah, and what they stand for. You do all that groundwork. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got 6 tools, which I won't rattle off now, but we have simple, like a policy matrix, which shows you on 30 different questions.
Yeah.
What are people running on? What are they all about? And how do the parties compare? We've got like rap sheets. It shows you how your politician has stacked up over the last 3 years, what they've been up to, what their voting record is in your interest. So we have like a red light system, green for good, orange for whatever, maybe they didn't show up to the vote, they've been a bit lazy. And then red for you shouldn't have voted that way. That's increased, making my life harder. But then the most powerful tool is the how to vote cards. So if someone has like the highest level of trust with my organization, they're like, "Joel, been watching you for 3 years. I like your takes on everything. I don't have the time to look into this. I mean, this is like my sister. She's got 3 kids. I don't have time, Joel, to look in all this. I have this level of trust with you. Would you vote in my area?" And it's at that point, I'm basically handed to my team. I say, "Hey, she lives in, Strathfield. How would you vote in New South Wales?" And they're like, "Yep, here you go. This is how you do it." So in the last election, and this is why it's the most powerful tool, over 200,000 people used our how to vote cards.
Incredible.
So that's about 2% of voters that actually voted. That's 1 in 50 people. So walking here, I ran into 3 people that knew me, which is just insane. And it's really cool because I think people forget how big the common sense movement is in this country. It's actually quite common. But I think people are a little bit shy about speaking out.
That's true. What would you say right now that your biggest concern is? Like I said, there's free speech, there's taxes, there's cost of living. I mean, these are all majors, right? But right now, what do you see as the biggest risk that I know we've got to play at a lot of fronts, but what do you see as the biggest threat right now to our country here in Australia?
Immigration.
Right.
It's the number one. And it might
Spell that out. Spell that.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, you're an immigrant.
Sure. Yeah, Hey, right,
But,
you give me
but
a history on that.
spell that out for people as to why, because I've noticed that one thing, say with people, let's say just on the left, especially in America, right? But the left have this idea of empathy, but the empathy only goes to a certain level.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The empathy goes to the easy part, but they never think, like, for example, if there's a crime, they're empathetic towards the person who committed the crime because their upbringing was bad, but they never care about the person who the crime was committed against.
Yeah.
So explain to people why illegal immigration or over-immigration is a real problem in a country like Australia.
Yeah.
Spell it out for them like in a simple way.
It's simple, like, it's supply and demand. Anyone that's done economics, a high school student will tell you, look, there's limited resources. We don't live in the future. We don't live in, Futurama or something.
Yep.
There's limited resources. We only have a set amount of land in this country that is released to the public. We only have a set amount of water, amount of roads. We can only complete this many infrastructure projects as quickly as possible. My background is construction. My background is like planning. And I'm like, our infrastructure can't keep up.
Yep.
All right. We don't even have to bring culture into it. But on top of that, just having come back from Europe, I hadn't been to Europe before. It is exactly what I was worried it was going to be. Going to London, going to France, seeing what's happened. They don't have mass immigration in Hungary. They don't have mass immigration in Greece. They don't have people hanging out there. But they do in London, in Germany, and in France. Why is that? Those are the places doing handouts. So Australia is very much in that category as well. We put people up for free. A story just came out in London. In the UK, they're putting up 26,000 people and paying for their accommodation. They're on almost like a pension system, some sort of welfare. 26,000. I mean, where are you finding the money for this?
Yeah.
And so in Australia, yes, we should take some people in on a refugee level.
Right.
These aren't refugees. These are economic migrants, like my grandfather. So, let me address the elephant in the room, my eyebrows. When it comes to my family, we came under the White Australia policy. So we were actually able to get in under the White Australia policy. White Australia's got a bit of a bad rap, that policy.
Right.
But what it was basically a language test. It was a values test where they actually test your values. We don't do that so much now, but they used to do that under the White Australia policy. Again, unfortunate name. My grandfather from Lebanon, he was half Lebanese, half Syrian. He was able to get out here. He spoke a bit of French. He had a trade that was needed.
Yep.
He was Christian.
Help build the country.
And he did. He helped build Our Lady of Lebanon. When he came here, they were laying the foundations of Our Lady of Lebanon in the late 60s. And that was what he was all about. He was about integrating into the country. No, this is my country now. So by the time you get to my dad, fluent English, first language, he speaks Arabic as a second language. The guy went to the Conservatorium of Music.
Yeah.
He played the clarinet, the saxophone. He could teach Christianity. He could teach, Middle Eastern version of Christianity. He was able to do that integration. It doesn't exist so much today.
No.
And so the foreign-born population that was not from white countries, it was very small back then in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. But now we got 40% foreign-born. 40%. Now, I don't care how good your system is. You can't integrate 40% of people into your country.
Well, it doesn't become integration. Integration, it changes the way, it changes the whole foundation of your country. So where do you see the answer to, like, just to put it out there, your thoughts on immigration? How would it look? If you had the way to create policy, what's your immigration policy look like? Because this is going to help people, where you land and to trust Turning Point Australia. Where do you see immigration, the correct policy being that would actually work for this country?
Only bring in people that you need.
Right.
Now, we actually don't need that many. We just don't.
What do we need right now in this country?
Mate, they say we need trades and we need doctors and this and that. That's not what's coming in. That's not what's coming in. Now, Malcolm Roberts, he taught me this amazing stat. I've got to give him credit. It was actually Paulino. It was Pauline first, and then I heard it from Malcolm. So less than 0.5% of the immigrants that are coming in are actually tradies.
Yeah.
I'm like,
half a percent.
Less than 0.5%. And it's like, what are we? They say, we need immigrants because we need to build houses. There's a housing crisis. Everything is a crisis. It means you can burn the Constitution if it's a crisis. Yeah. You can lock people in their homes if it's a crisis. That's why they say that. it's not a housing crisis. It is a government, it's a Canberra crisis.
Yeah.
It is a crisis of leadership. 100 years ago, we didn't have this problem. We had leadership, and it's funny, when you have leadership, everything falls into place.
Yeah.
Singapore's a great example of that. They had great leadership, 50 years ago. They got Singapore on track. They had nothing to work with. I think their national GDP was $500, 500 US dollars. But they managed to turn it around with proper leadership, focusing on education and building things up. Australia used to do nation building projects 100 years ago, building dams, building fleets. I mean, we had a tier 2 Navy from the time that they ordered it to the time that they received it. They had a tier 2 Navy built in 5 years.
Yeah, wow.
A year before the breakout of World War I. That was the foresight they had. And I look at what's happening in this country. There's no steel production happening. We're not doing Project Iron Boomerang. Look it up if you haven't heard about it. It's a great one that Malcolm Roberts has talked about. There's no Bradbury scheme, which is going to basically green the center of Australia so we can feed the whole of Asia.
Yeah.
We're not thinking big. We're all talking about, oh no, don't pull this gas out, or don't, get royalties from this corporation, or we want to shut down all the oil refineries in Australia to get to net zero. Why are we kneecapping ourselves?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of average people, not average in any sense, but people that aren't traditionally a part of politics, they're looking at this and they're like, no, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
This does not make sense. Who is getting rich off this? Something stinks, because if this is happening in the business world, the cops would be all over it. The ATO would be all over it. Something sticks. Someone's getting rich. Australia, this is very much feels like a controlled demolition from my view.
Yeah.
I've seen this pattern. I've seen this pattern in Rhodesia, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Iran. I see this pattern of a country. It could very much be a tier 2 or a tier 1 nation, and it gets kneecapped.
Yeah.
And it's like, what's that about? And so and again, I don't have all the answers on this, so forgive me if I sound a bit conspiratorial, but it just doesn't make sense. We have everything you need to be a powerful nation, and we're just killing ourselves.
Where do you see the problem is, and we talk about it on the show a lot, is that we need to see change, and everyone knows that. Everyone who's conservative is like, we don't like what's happening now. There is no real leadership. That's what it looks like. Anyone in my circle who I know is quite a competent leader. We look to Canberra, and I can name on one hand people who I look to that could be a real leader. To be honest, when I look at all the independent parties and the smaller right-wing party or the conservative parties, when we dream up our dream team, if they all, got on the same page, for starters, which they won't, but if they all came together, got on the same page, who would then lead it? And there's only one person I look at who could lead it that I know of. And unfortunately, he's a senator, so he'd have to leave the Senate. I'm talking about Senator Antic, right? Yeah. Antic is the only person I look at who I go, man, this guy's a leader. He's young enough to stick it out, and actually I could get behind in this country. Do you know of anyone else to just give some hope to the viewers of like, hey, we need this person to get in eventually, and then in maybe not the next election, but the one after that, we can start to get some control back? Who do you look to as some of the leaders in Canberra?
I try to get less caught up on these questions and more caught up on building the machine.
Right.
We've got a couple of components of a winning movement.
Let's talk about the machine and what it takes to create a winning movement.
Because this is the thing. I mean, if we take a case study like the UK, Nigel Farage, maybe your audience isn't familiar. He's the guy that got Brexit done. He wanted to give control back to the UK. 70% of their laws were being made by the EU. He said, that's not okay. We've got to get out. We've got to control who's coming into the UK's borders. We can't leave that to the Europeans. And so he basically is the talent. He is the Trump of the UK. He's someone that can articulate the worries of the nation and also speak to the spirit of the nation and really stir them. We don't have that person in the country, in my view. And the person, because it'll light a fire under your butt. You'll be pulling out your checkbook if you got money, and you'll be like, take my money. I'm going to give this guy my last $100. That's not there. I don't see that person that stirs me like Nigel. And I know Nigel. I've met the guy. I've felt his presence. That aura per se, the Gen Zers like to say. I don't yet feel that. But it's frankly irrelevant. That's not the thing we need to build. Because even when they had Nigel, even when they had Trump in 2020, there was no machine to get the guy elected. And that's what I'm focused on. That's what I'm focused on building. It's the machine, so that even if you have the guy, cometh the hour, cometh the man. We've got to build this machine to get the guy elected, to actually back him up, to run the PR, to change the culture. And that's why I focus on elections. So local, state, federal, referendums, I focus on all
Yep.
elections. No one does that in this country. Not one organization, not Advance, not the IPA, no one. No one does that. So we fought local elections, I think about 4 or 5 of them
Yeah.
in the last 3 years. And we ended up getting quite a few libertarians elected
Yeah.
last year, actually. We ended up getting half a dozen elected in 2021.
Right.
We got a dozen elected in New South Wales last year, and like another dozen elected in Victoria, last year as well. And then at the state level, we've got a number of upper house members. At a federal level, we've now got something like 5 freedom senators elected. We are very clearly able to get members of parliament elected, but they just haven't yet come together.
Yeah.
Which is okay. We'll come to that in a sec. But the reason why you've bother fighting local, because a lot of people might be listening to me and saying, Joel, why fight local? All politics is local. If you fight local elections, it makes it easier to win a state election. If you fight state elections, it makes it easier to win a federal election. And that's unfortunately the infrastructure and the ground game that has been lacking. But now parties like the Libertarians and even One Nation, they're starting to catch on.
All right.
And if you do that, you can win. You can win in incrementally. That's what the Greens have done the last 30 years as a grassroots movement.
Yeah.
Now they control the balance of power in the Senate.
Yeah.
The Greens have the only hold over the Senate. And so, yeah, look, I actually am very encouraged. We've got a number of state elections coming up. South Australia next year, Victoria next year, New South Wales the year after. We might get the balance of power in New South Wales the year after. I'm very excited about that, but we do need to get these minor parties together, which I am actually pleased to tell you, you're the first to know. I'm working with Michael O'Neill from the Heart Party. He said, we can't keep doing this, Joel. I've sent invites out to all the freedom parties out there.
Yeah.
I've told them, I'll pay for everything. I'll pay for your, for the lunch, but please come here, come to Sydney. We'll have a meeting. Let's talk about the path forward.
Yeah.
And he reached out to me a couple of days ago and he said, Joel, do you mind chairing this? Because, you're kind of the neutral guy in the party thing. And we share the same vision for, getting the balance of power with like-minded people. And I said, mate, happy to help. I just want what you want. He's getting a bit on. Michael, he's like 70 now. He's been in this fight for a while, him and his wife, Barbara O'Neill. And that's what we need. We need better organization. We need better culture building. We need better organization when it comes to elections. And so, yeah, that's what I'm focused on.
That's amazing. So when you say that's exciting for people watching, because the biggest concern for people at home, anyone who's been on the conservative side, especially in Australia, basically what they did in the States, right? In the States, they kind of, like you said, in 2020, it was Trump. And, I'm probably one of those people who actually thinks he won the election, but that's a conspiracy chat for another time. But
I do too.
But, and even just to double down, I'm a little bit concerned about the last election we had here. But that's okay. I live in Queensland. I don't know. I just haven't met anyone who actually voted for Albo. Maybe my circle's a bit small. But like you said, in 2016, I know we're going to come back to Australia, guys, but in 2016, Trump went in, knew nothing really about Washington to a degree. He knew how the lobbyist side worked. He probably knew how the money side worked, but just didn't realize how deeply ingrained certain things were in the bureaucracy. Wins the election, whatever happens there, doesn't have the team. Has a terrible cabinet, basically just gets hamstrung the whole way through. But now, it took him 10 years of all his money, all his campaigning, all his brand, all the right people behind him, plus every conservative podcast in the world as well who jumps on the bandwagon of American politics to build that machine. What that would look like in Australia is the Liberal Party being destroyed, gutted, a leader comes in, all the minor parties come together on the right and they help get the Liberal Party elected.
Yeah.
What's your dream vision? Liberal Party rebuilt, or minor parties come together and actually put together a team that could compete against the other two majors?
It's kind of less important, to be honest. I mean, these things are all skin suits.
Okay.
If that makes sense. If you can mobilize people, you don't need a party to do that. You don't.
Okay.
You just need the right people talking to each other to get organized. Now, what would be good is if we had people stacking the Liberal Party in the event that, it's a bit like when you're playing roulette, you kind of hedge your bets on a few different things. You chuck a chip here, you chuck a chip there. Don't gamble, kids.
Yeah.
But look, when it comes to the Liberal Party, is it stackable? It is in some states. It's
Right.
not in other states.
Where is it right now? Where is it achievable to do that?
WA, South Australia, Tasmania, and maybe Queensland.
So really, New
Maybe
South Wales
Queensland.
is a stronghold that you probably can't
Yeah,
infiltrate. Is that
yeah.
because it takes you? I know, for instance, someone I know at the local level has been going. He joined the party. He goes to the meetings, and he says to me, "Brody, I can't believe there's no one here." And
Yeah, that's right.
and you can essentially be talking about policy,
Yep.
voting in new people who are going to be running in the party from the grassroots, like what you just spoke about. You can build the party. And he's like,
Yeah.
and there's no one at these meetings. Is
Yeah.
that true?
Yeah, yeah. And I think, and that's what I'm saying. It's less important about what specifically you're doing. We just need people to get more involved.
Right.
Now, I'm not telling you to put 50% of your year into it. I'm talking maybe 0.5%. 0.5%.
Just everyone.
Literally, of your awake time in the year, if you only invest 0.5% in the future of your nation, your parents' nation, for God's sake,
Yeah.
that can save the country. If more people did that, I appreciate it. Some people, they can't, like my sister, 3 kids. I don't know how she does it. I have no idea. But there's other ways she helps.
Practically, what's that look like for people to get involved?
Share stuff,
Yep.
put it out online, send it to your contacts. Say, use these how to vote cards when
Right.
how to vote cards come around. Do what you can. But if you know that you're going to be video gaming one night and there's a critical vote to get Gerard Rennick elected for the Senate, turn
Yeah.
up, for God's sake.
Yeah.
And don't complain when he doesn't get up. And that's the problem. There's so many keyboard warriors out there. It's like, guys, I know you want to be right in the comment section, but how about we win? How about you be wrong and you win?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be awesome? And that's okay. Look, people, they're learning the rules, and that's why I exist. But when it comes to the situation with regards to turning up and voting, people should sign up to the Liberals if they're in some of those states I mentioned.
Right.
New South Wales and Victoria, and even Queensland, they kind of burn the Constitution a little bit. Queensland, it's still stackable. New South Wales, it really isn't. They very much burn the Constitution in New South Wales. I'm not going to go into that because it's fun, but it's I think I'll lose the audience with
Right.
that. But I guess the point is, you can do that, and you can also vote minor party if the Liberals let you down.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't realise that. You don't have to be 100% one and 100% the other. You can go and volunteer for One Nation, hand out how to vote cards, or even the other libertarian parties or the other
And still
minor
vote.
parties,
Yeah.
and still vote in these pre-selections for people like Antic in the election for pre-selection. And so no, look, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it, mate. The 2028, it's not going to be a Liberal win. Under Susan Ley, I don't even know if she'll be the one that takes it to the election.
Having a leader.
But that's okay. I think the thing they need to understand is it's a bit like when you get that basketball behind you and you put that underwater. The lower it goes, the higher it's going to shoot up.
Yeah.
If Susan Ley or whichever Liberal leader loses the next one and they go really woke, the Libs are dead at that point. I thought they were dead now, but they'll be dead at that point.
Right.
And basically, what can come on the ashes out of that, the phoenix that can rise out of that, will be even more powerful. It'll move even quicker on the solutions, and it'll win a larger share of the vote. And so that's what I'm holding out for. That's what I'm looking out for. That's what I'm trying to educate people about, and it's 100% achievable. I think a lot of people are down about where Australia's going.
Yeah.
Just keep your head down. Think about new and creative ways to build community so you can support each other, cut costs, try and avoid Coles and Woolies, work on ways to procure food for your family that's cheaper. Just keep your head down. And, if you're out there and you're able to move your business overseas and it's lower taxes, mate, go for that.
Yeah.
But never forget about your homeland. Never forget about Australia. Never forget about what this country gave you so that you could actually be prosperous for you and your family. Remember to invest a bit of that money back into Australia in, podcasts like this.
Yeah.
If you have donations. And so, so look, it's a long-winded answer, but it really depends who it is, where they are, which state.
Gotcha.
What their capacity is. So I like to take questions from people.
Where do you think right now, as you travel around, you've done a bunch of travel, but in Australia, for people who are struggling with cost of living, because it is probably the number one thing I hear all the time, you just simply can't get by right now. I'm in the construction industry. I have a business there, and I'm in the unionized world. And so all my employees are paid really well, extremely well. But I know that they struggle. Because just simply put, things are so expensive. Where do you think are some of the more livable cities right now in Australia? I mean, I went down to Melbourne just in the last couple of weeks. I loved it. I find it's woke. I get all that, but the culture there's good. There's an economy there. It is leaving though. Like I saw so many shops, and a lot of people were saying, "Oh, we're closing," and this was all just a follow on from what happened during COVID. It just got to a point they've experienced like a year or two after COVID, and they can't function anymore, and they're leaving. Have you seen any places that are actually quite vibrant in Australia, and people are like, "Man, this place could be happening"? Because some of the major places are kind of it's getting harder and harder, and people are moving out. Where have you seen around Australia that's alive right now?
Anywhere about an hour and a half north of Sydney
Right?
is good. There's some great places in and around Newcastle and anywhere up the coast. Really, I mean, there's so many
Mm,
spots, and then take your pick. Take your pick. It's red blooded Australia,
yep.
along the coast there. Take your pick.
Mm,
There's so many good places. A young couple of mine, they're friends. They're 26, 27. They're both making a little over 200,000 each. They can't get into the Sydney market.
it's incredible, isn't it?
Can't get it. Like they went
Yeah.
they went to school. They got great grades. One
Yeah.
of them's in the legal profession.
Mm.
The other one is in the government. And there are
Public servant, yeah.
some sort of public servant. Both making over 200,000 each. They can't get into the Sydney market.
Yeah,
And
incredible.
it's like, okay, so where are they going?
Mm,
Oh, 2 hours north of Sydney. Now it's actually quite beautiful there,
yeah.
and so it's like you'll find a place for anywhere from 500,000 to 650, which is what Sydney kind of used to be,
A long time ago, yeah.
long time ago, 2005 maybe.
Yeah.
But now people have to go that far north, and look, if you can't afford that, keep going north
Mm,
or go west from Sydney. Go to Campbelltown, get something for 650, 800,000. But yeah, look, it's a sad bunch of affairs.
that's what I mean. The reason I bring it up is getting involved politically for people. This is you're not just sharing your expression or your hatred for a certain party or the way that things are. It's setting up for what's to come. And so right now, I mean, I remember thinking back to some of the reports I read. I think to buy a house, I don't know if it was 30 years ago, it used to be like, say, 3 to 5 times your average income. Now it's like 13 to 15 times your average income. Like it's incredible. So the idea of the Australian dream and the American dream and having a single parent work and the mum raise the kids or whatever the traditional family looks like and then buy a house, it's becoming near impossible. And the reason I bring it up is, guys, if we don't get engaged politically in some aspect, whether you're going on to Turning Point Australia or watching your podcast as well or other conservative podcasts and getting involved, it's not enough just to consume this stuff. Like you've actually got to take a step, join a local party, get involved, do the grassroots stuff. I wanted to ask you, what's one of the biggest things that really bother you? So what's something that's kind of drives you? For instance, we just saw Jim Chalmers respond to, I'm pretty relaxed about the leak that came out recently, the report, and nothing was redacted. And it basically said, the report said, there is no way that they can have this budget. It's not sustainable without increasing taxes. So when you're sitting here trying to fight and talk to people and they're still not listening and they're still not voting against these people, what is it that drives you? Do those things just infuriate you when you see what the direction of these politicians are going?
Honestly, man, it's partly I'd like to think what drives you as well.
Mm,
I think this is right. It's just love of audience.
yep,
I wouldn't be here.
yep,
I wouldn't be here doing this, wasting my time. And believe me, before we got on camera, the amount of missiles that hit you doing this job, venues
yep,
cancelled,
yep.
visas don't get given to certain talent to come out. And the reason I do this, the reason I sit on this cactus is because I love my audience. I love that 1 in 50 people that use our How to Vote cards. I know more people are out there that we're not able to reach because of censorship and whatever.
Mm,
And they're literally asking for something.
yeah.
There's a yearning in them. This doesn't make sense, but I don't have the time to work it out.
Mm,
It's honestly, it is genuinely from a position of patriotism. I love my country. I went to a great school. I was raised by great parents. I
yeah.
love my God. Australia is a Christian nation, and that's changing, unfortunately. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't understand that that's what is making Australia worse. It
Mm,
is by destroying the things that made Australia great. And that's why I really get frustrated with people that just they haven't quite worked that out.
right.
They're just like, oh, it's the big corporations, or it's this, it's that.
I
Or,
wanted to ask you about that. Probably a month or two ago, maybe longer now. Time flies. You did a bit of a debate with like from Punters Politics, and he was there, and a few other people. It got a bit of news for a while. The actual momentum, because even my mum was like, "Have you seen that we're selling our energy?" And like, I was like, "Yeah, I get it." What are some of your thoughts around that? The audience who really like, "Hey, we're a really rich nation in resources. We're exporting a ton. We're bringing it back. We're paying lots for it to come back. We're giving it to them cheap, and we're charging our own people expensive." How much of that do you think really plays, or do you think it's a bit like semantics and that's different to what you're trying to do?
look, I got to the bottom of that issue.
Right.
Punters Politics, he taught me a lot about it.
Yep.
I started looking into it. I was speaking to, funnily enough, the researcher for Pauline Hanson.
Right.
She worked with her for 9 years. And I said, what's the deal with this? And she said, oh, what's going on is these corporations, they do pay some taxes, but it's very small compared to the royalties they could. And it's basically because what they're doing is they're exploiting a tax loophole. They don't pay taxes on investigating liquefied natural gas, so offshore liquefied sort of
Right.
natural
Yep.
gas. They don't pay taxes on that because what they do is they say, oh, they keep changing the price of exploring for it because it's very expensive.
Yeah.
But if you keep changing that price,
Yeah.
like to buy a property, the equivalent for you to go buy a property and build a duplex to buy, 100,000 for the land. Oh no, now it's 200,000. Oh, you tell the taxman, no, it was actually 300,000. They keep doing that, and then that avoids them having to pay any tax.
Right.
And it's like, oh, that's what's going on. Okay, so what's the solution? Pauline Hanson already did the solution with Scott Morrison in a small way, so it was incremental. What she did, she pushed Morrison to actually charge to reduce that. So they were able to get 100% deductibles on that, tax deductible. But she brought that down a few percentage points.
Okay.
It ended up bringing in just that minor change.
Yeah.
$2.6 billion in that one budget,
Mm.
just in royalties.
For the year. Yeah.
Which is insane. So that's just to give you an idea of how
Yeah.
much, we're talking about here. That could build like, a few new coal power stations in Australia.
Yeah, it's substantial.
And so she did that under Morrison. Now, Punters Politics, the majority of his audience either vote, and we know this because I've got the screenshots of the polls when he polled his audience.
Yeah.
They voted either teal or green. The
Yeah.
majority.
Yeah.
That is the natural direction he pushed. He also pushed some build the ballot, sort of system where you can put your details in, what you believe in, and they send you a ballot. It
Yeah.
leans left.
Yeah.
It leans left.
Mm.
So he's pushing these things that lean left. He's saying don't vote for the coalition of One Nation. But I said, mate, the only one that's got any rungs on the board is One Nation.
Yeah.
And Gerard Rennick also supported these proposals.
Mm.
But what did the Greens and the Teals do the last 3 years when they had the balance of power?
Mm. Zero.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And so I actually called him out in that debate, and it got cut. The whole thing got cut.
Mm.
And I did record the whole thing, and I have, the receipts, so no one can say I lied. But it's like I really like Punters Politics.
So do I. Yeah,
but
so do
I
I.
do feel, and I'm not insulting his intelligence or anything. Maybe he totally disagrees with me, and he's welcome to criticize this video. He's a great guy. He's actually really
I think
good
he's
sport.
likable. That's why I actually like watching
Yeah.
him. I don't agree with.
Yeah.
Oh well, look, he is the one tune really, but I know that he would definitely lean left.
Yeah.
Actually, I want to touch on this around young males right now. Why is it in Australia, and we saw obviously we're probably a couple of years behind what's happening in the States, and different parts of the world. Why are young people, not just male, but why are young people in our country left leaning? Where is that coming from? I know obviously universities, but go a little bit deeper. Why do you think it's left leaning, and also quite progressive, like quite extreme in some cases? Your thoughts?
I think there's a few pieces. I think the culture is a big part of it.
Yeah.
When you get a Homer Simpson who's a dummy
Right.
and his wife have to save him from everything. I mean, where are the great men that built the West?
Yeah.
Where do we see that in our culture?
So a lack of inspirational leaders to look to is one. Yeah.
It's been subtle. It's
Yeah.
been subtle. But also there's big question marks around facts.
Yeah.
Why is it testosterone in the West is collapsing? Why is it men's sperm count is collapsing? why are these things happening? These biological things, they do end up actually getting covered. There's a great book written by a friend of mine, Damien Costas. He wrote a book called um, Australia, like what happened to the lucky country. That's what it's called, by
Yeah.
Damien Costas. And he covers some of these psychological, neurological sort of issues that have
Mm-hmm.
come up. And that's partly what's also going on. I'm still trying to work it out myself. And I think that's why you do see a lot of strength from people whose parents were Anzac soldiers,
Right.
or people who went to the trades. There's no coincidence that you and I are from the construction
Yeah.
industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's also why, people who, when I went to the COVID protests, I saw people that either had Anzac heritage, their parents fought in the world wars or
Mhm.
whatever, people from the construction industry, and immigrants.
Right.
And I was like, why is there a disproportionate level of immigrants here? And it's because they understand what happens in war-torn countries in
Yeah.
those situations. And I'm like, oh, okay. So where is the majority of Australians? A lot of them are just very compliant, Like, and I'll say this: the Chinese and the Indians were very underrepresented at the COVID protests.
Right.
For the percentage of population they were underrepresented. You'd be lucky to see, you might find a couple of them at the protests. And it's like, why is that? Is
Yeah.
Asia
Why
got-
is that?
Well, look, I think Asia, to an extent, they've got more of a compliant attitude towards
Right.
things, and maybe similarly with the Indians. But I think that's probably a better question to ask them. And I've asked a few Chinese and Indians in the past that are with us. Say, why are you guys underrepresented? And they don't fight it. They say, yeah, we are underrepresented.
Yeah.
And I wish more of them would wake up. That's what they say.
Yeah.
And I think we've got to delve under the layer of that, because it's going to give us an understanding of not only what has gone wrong, but how can we get things back on track. And harness really what makes Australia great, what makes men men, what makes women women.
Right.
The basics.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so yeah, look, it's hard to put it down to one thing, but the culture is a big thing. Genetics is a big thing. The level of immigration we've got, and I mean, when you immigrate, when you get people, 40% of Australia is foreign born. I mean, that's going to dilute things a little bit.
So do you subscribe to the push from the left through what we see in Hollywood, through film? Do you subscribe to what they're teaching in schools? It's all like, do you feel like it's a play? It's an agenda? Are you on the side where you're all the way there as well? You think,
Yeah.
there's an agenda, and the agenda simply could be just to break down the family unit. So if we want to put our conspiracy hat on for a second, what do you think the end play is with, like, because at the moment it seems like it's going a certain way, not by accident. People like us are trying to fight against it, right? But it's going a certain way. What do you think the end play is? If you were to speculate, what's the end game for them?
Well, if you want to defang a society, you need a centralized control. If you're going after the farmers, for example, and you have less farms, it's easier to actually go to one big farm and say to the CEO, if you don't do this, we're going to do that. And they have a bit of a working relationship. You scratch my back, I scratch your back. And that's why you see Albo, he's best friends with Qantas and all these big corporates, because these corporates are keeping other companies out. Like what happened with Qantas? Why did Albo give a disproportionate amount of flights to Qantas? Whereas I can't remember which airline it was. It might have been Qatar or Emirates trying to get into the Australian market. And the Australian government basically kept them out.
Right.
Kept Qantas in the game with a bit of a monopoly. And it's like, well, why are you doing that? Is it because Qantas, chucked a couple mil behind your referendum?
Right.
Because maybe they played a few ways, And you see this all the time. You see, the big banks, the big four banks, they gave like $1 million or $2 million each to the referendum. Rio Tinto, Coles, Woolies, Qantas, all throwing money at the referendum. Qantas was flying the Yes campaigners around for free. When you see these things, you got to ask the question, who is the government actually working for? And when you realize that they want to go to less farmers to deal with, they want to go to less companies to deal with in whatever industry. When you see the lockdown rules mainly affect small businesses but don't affect Coles and Woolies.
Of course.
It's like, okay, all right, I get it now. I get it. You want to be able to have vectors of control. You also want to defang the society. You defang society by going after men. Because if you can do that, then you can increase the tax base. It's partly why I think they really pushed women to work. I think it doubled the workforce, and it also in turn resulted in parents being forced to pay double that they need for the houses that they have, because you're now competing with other couples that have two incomes, and your wife is now forced to work.
Yep.
And then the other element is then you're outsourcing your kids to the government for education.
Yeah.
And people are protesting. They're like, oh, I gave my child to Caesar and the child came back a Roman.
Yeah.
It's like, what did you expect was going to happen?
Yeah. Well, we homeschool now.
God bless you.
Yeah.
There's a huge movement out of COVID. There was a huge movement that came out of that.
Yeah.
And I take my hat off to you. It's not easy to do that, but it's necessary. Otherwise, you could, like, what's the point in all this if you lose your kid?
Exactly.
Like what happens to Elon? He's like, my son has died. He's no longer my son.
To the woke virus. Yeah.
The woke virus, because he became transgender. And so you look at these things. There is a systematic breakdown of society. Western countries, the Five Eyes countries, Australia included, Germany and France, they're just taking themselves apart. They're controlling themselves in a way that is basically increasing the tax amount. It's like squeezing the last drops of the cow. The cow's not even standing up anymore.
Yeah.
And there's a big question mark as to why, which I don't fully get.
So I was going to say, just speculating, what you kind of spoke about then was really the way in which things happen, and obviously big corporations, I like to think they're just big. And I'm a capitalist, so I'm not against people making money. I'm all for that's fine. But you got these big corporations, and their sole purpose, their agenda is to make money. That's what the corporations are for. They're there to make money for their shareholders, for themselves, to line everyone's pockets involved. The government's sole purpose, supposedly, is meant to protect the nation, serve the nation, look after us, make sure we're fed, safe, housed, that we have resources, all that. But those two, do you think it's just a circle of those two keeping each other happy, or do you think there's another force, another cabal, because many people who are into this stuff now, they're like, there's the Rothschilds or whatever it is, right? Do you believe there's another force external, or do you look at someone like Albo and say, no, Albo's making the shots. He's calling the shots. He's leading us down the gurgle at the moment. Like, where do you if you were just to speculate?
Oh, it's a tough one. And
let your imagination flow, Joel.
It'll lose me some people. I don't want to insult the audience.
Not at all. I mean, just to speculate, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, with the caveat that these are my thoughts alone, and I don't go around telling people this in terms of this is the truth.
Well, the good thing about being conservatives is we're allowed to say, oh, we got it wrong last week. All right. So I'm just asking, where's your imagination go sometimes? It doesn't mean it's actually like, this is the truth. I will say first and foremost, I get the feeling sometimes. I'm like, man, someone else is calling the shots. Like, why? When I look at, I'll give you an example. Yeah. We voted in Scott Morrison as Christians are going, Scott Morrison. He did nothing for the Christian base. Yeah. I'm like, why? I asked Malcolm Roberts, who sat right there, the same question. Was he owned, compromised, or incompetent?
Yeah.
Or all three, right? So I'm like, do you feel right now you're fighting a bigger system, or is it like, no, these guys are just incompetent or greedy and we can actually infiltrate and get it back? Like, that's what I'm asking you.
It's complicated. So look, Scott Morrison's a good example because it's a rock solid example we can go off. And it's a few years since and we can see.
He's just enjoying the Cronulla Sharks right now. So, he's living his life.
Look, the guy is certainly when he got into politics and when he was younger, I think he was a true blue Aussie that wanted the best for the nation. And most politicians, when they get into politics, even the Greens, even the lefties, they start off that way. And then they get in there and then they go to the private dinners and they go to this and they're given places of honor. And it really does rub off onto them. They like it and they don't want to lose it.
Right.
And they will do whatever it takes to hold that power. If that means passing this bill for Rio Tinto, passing this bill for Coles and Woolies, or staying out of the way of the LGBT yes vote or whatever.
Right.
That is what they will do in order to stay in the power. It corrodes people. And that's why some people like George Christensen, they leave early. He was a great member of parliament, never compromised. And I think it's a mixture of that. It's also a mixture of it's competing interests in Canberra. Right. So Scott Morrison, let's take a good example, like one of the last bills he wanted to pass was a religious freedom bill.
Yeah, well, he ran on it. He ran on it. And it never happened.
That's right, because there was the Israel Folau case. Rugby Australia got rid of Israel Folau, and Scott Morrison ran on the fact, said, yep, I will promise I will propose a bill that will make sure that this doesn't happen again. And so there's even a clause in it, which is like the Israel Folau clause.
Mm.
And so he put that forward. He did try to pass it. So he sat with religious leaders. I've got the photos of all denominations, and he worked with them in order to come up with the bill. There were great organizations out there like the Aligned Council of Australia. I do believe that the Aligned Council of Australia is one, and a number of, actually not the Aligned Council of Australia, there's a bunch of organizations. Yep. And he tried to pass it, and it failed. And it failed because there are at least 5 Liberals in New South Wales and 1 in Victoria, Bridget Archer, Tasmania. They didn't pass it. So the Liberal Party didn't pass their own Prime Minister's bill. Why is that? It's because the Liberal Party's been white-anted. It's because through the membership, people have been signed up, and they shouldn't be in the Liberal Party. And if you're not sure if you should be in the Liberal Party, read the Menzies We Believe statement on the website, and you can see the values that a conservative Liberal Party member stands for. And they didn't stand for that. So the party was white-anted, because if you can infiltrate a party of your opponent, you don't have to fight an opponent all of a sudden. Yeah. If you give your boxing opponent poison before the fight, you're going to win.
Yeah.
That's what's happened. And so it's achieving the same outcomes through another means. Now, some people do that through the Liberal Party, not because they're particularly long-term thinkers. It's because they want to be someone. They want to be the Prime Minister, a bit like Malcolm Turnbull. He said, when he was younger,
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter which party I'm the Prime Minister. I just want to be Prime Minister. It tells you everything you need to know. Whereas there are some people that want to get into politics to get things done. That's Malcolm Roberts. That's Pauline Hanson. That's Gerard Rennick. And so I look at these things and it's complicated.
Yeah.
But then you see Scott Morrison do stuff like, before he leaves, he does AUKUS. And when he leaves Parliament and he tries to find a job in the public sector, in the private sector, he gets a cushy job with the very organisation in the UK which is working on AUKUS.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is this revolving door between, government and industry? And when I see that, it makes me angry, it makes other people angry. They get the sense that it's a big old club and you ain't in it.
Yeah.
And I just think that it's complicated. But on top of that, to give the devil his due, because we were talking about, is there a level above this?
Yeah.
There's also a big club of organizations of people that network at the
highest level.
At the highest level, and they're mates.
Yeah.
They're mates. It's like if I got into your industry and I was like, hey mate, can I get a few jobs here? Yeah, of course. You're going to give me the job over someone who may be better than what I do. The nepotism comes into it. And so there's a bit of that as well. And then it's also about them working together to take the most money out of the people.
Yeah.
So the extraction of wealth that happened during COVID was the greatest transfer of wealth ever. You've said this on the show.
Yeah.
And they keep doing that time and time and time again.
Yeah.
They do it with just before the breakout of a war. Oh, put your money into these stocks. Insider trading. They do it with COVID. Oh, put it into the vaccines because we're about to drop, COVID. They knew about that in September 2019 before it even came out. They dropped money into the renewables industry. Oh, yep, because we're gonna lobby government. We're gonna lobby the Liberal Party and the Labor Party to pass subsidies for the renewable industry. We're gonna shut down the opponents. Oh yeah, I know nuclear energy is net zero, but we're gonna get rid of it anyway.
Yeah.
It's just about transferring wealth and sucking that cow dry, which is the Australian population and Western countries. And it's just more control. How can we make sure we don't get a violent revolution from people?
Well, that's the other thing that people I talk to about in work circles and on the show as well, is how far do you believe we can be pushed before people start really, I guess, like every man has his line in the sand. A lot of time it's for those who have kids. Gets to a point, a man can probably handle being broke, but he won't handle you coming after his child. I saw that in COVID at the school where my kids were, something happened and the security guard wouldn't let the father go in. I've shared this story before. Man, in a moment, the father was like, well, this is not happening, and just sort of launched the security out of the way. Because there's a line in the sand. At what point do you think, how taxed can we get? How broke can we get before people start going to the streets and actually overturning a government? Because that's what people at home are kind of thinking, like, nothing happens. We try, but nothing happens. the government, we try and vote, we listen to your cards and we do what you said, Joel, but when they don't feel like we're having the results, but you actually had a lot of great results. Like we are taking ground. So I want to make sure before we wrap up, we just remind people, hey, we are etching away of it, but do you believe there's going to be a point where it's like we either get our turning point, and is that through strategy, or there's going to be a turning point because it's gone to custard and people have had enough? Like what do you see happening?
It's like a seesaw. It's like a seesaw. So you got this little seesaw happening, and it's like, all right, in 2017 and before that, Scott Morrison was pushing for, if you don't get the vaccine, you don't get paid. You don't get your welfare payments. So
Crazy, right?
I wasn't on that train. I thought, yeah, you should get vaccinated. I thought that. That's what. But Michael O'Neill from the Heart Party, he was like, nah, we're against that. So he's like a little 5-cent coin on that little scale. Then COVID comes around and we grow that to about 25% of the country that ended up being with us. So it's okay, but it's still, you got 75% on the other side still. It's not enough. And then we start getting things to do with people are waking up about COVID. Oh, the lockdowns didn't make any sense. Why is it everyone I know, they're either getting, killing themselves or they're getting some strange disease and they're really young. This never used to happen. Oh, more people. Okay. We're getting to the 50-50 mark.
Right.
We might already be there, but we don't know till we test it. I think we partly saw that with the referendum on The Voice. That's why I was really excited on the night, and I predicted the result. I was like, it's going to be 60-40. And it was bang on 60-40. And it was crazy because it was like, okay, we know we haven't had so much immigration and so much fluoride in the water that people are too far gone.
We're not a woke country.
We're not.
Based on that referendum,
Based on that, I can work with that. The way I think about it is 15% of each state, they vote for a freedom party. They voted for either One Nation or whatever. That's 15%. Okay, cool. Now, there's another 45 to 50% that didn't vote for them, but they did vote no.
Yeah.
So we can evangelize to those people. That is possible.
Yeah.
Those two combined, that's 60 to 70%.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, all right. Because there's a lot of people that don't turn up and vote as well. And they're very much on our side, a lot of them. And it's like, okay, we can do this.
Yep.
We can do this. That was the pulse check. It only happened 2 years ago. We can do this. But why aren't we able to do it? Leadership. We don't have enough ground game. We haven't funded any major networks. We need a proper TV network. We can't do this. The podcasting's great. It's good for the Spartan warriors out there. But we've got to reach the masses, the full 60 to 70%. That's $250,000.
Yeah.
That's $250,000 in this country in order to get like a Channel 7 or a 9 or just
Is that
start.
it?
Just to start. Yeah. Well, look, we're a small country, 26 million people in terms of that. And you would probably lose money on it to start with, but it really would take a patriot to do it. We've got Clive Palmer. He's worth $40 billion.
I was just thinking, why hasn't Clive taken that? No advisors?
I think he did try. The problem is they really do guard those licenses. And then you've got, obviously Gina, 60, 70 a billion. But we're missing a few components here. And we've also, the fourth component is what you're alluding to. It's that tipping point on the seesaw where it's the majority of Australians. All right, that's it. No, it's not just a referendum on The Voice.
Yeah.
It's the taxes. Yeah. It's the immigration. It's the everything. And they put it all together and they're like, okay, that requires significant propaganda from our side. And I say propaganda not because it's not true, but in terms of to propagate your values and educate people on who is actually punching you, why are they punching you, and how can you punch back? People don't even know how to punch back.
Yeah.
They don't even know, why someone's punching them, and they don't even know that they're being punched. They're just kind of like, yeah, I noticed eggs are double the price they were last year.
It's head in the sand. It's head in the sand.
No idea why that is. They have to learn. And look, and I hate to say this, it is an element of survival of the fittest. There is an element of that. And I hate to say this because a lot of people in the last few years have killed themselves that I know. And unfortunately, there is a price the longer this takes. The longer this takes, the more good people we're going to lose.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. That's really unfortunate. And there's a lot of people like Punters Politics.
Yeah.
I believe a lot of guys like him are going to be with us in the
end. So do I.
He doesn't comment on immigration, and I always wonder why that is.
Yeah.
And he got to know. The guy's got to know. If you immigrate, a bunch of people from my home country that my parents came from, Lebanon and Syria, you can't just immigrate anyone.
Yeah.
You can't just immigrate, 500,000 people into Sydney from Syria.
Yeah.
All right. Even if they're Christians, it's got to be relatively slow, And so there was a great moment in that debate where Abby Chatfield, she's like, how does that affect you? I couldn't get a word through the screaming
Yeah.
banshees. But I was going to say, I don't know, my bishop was stabbed in the eye.
Exactly.
And they're like, yeah, but that he was, he wasn't an immigrant. He was born here. He was a teenager that was born here. That's worse. That tells you he didn't integrate. That tells you that we have zero integration to the point that these kids think that they can go up to a bishop in the middle of a sermon and stab him in the eye.
Yeah.
When does that happen in Australia's history? And so it's like, okay, do we really have to wait until your friends that Abby, are being raped by gangs like what we're seeing in the UK? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But as the Arab on the panel, I'm not gonna wait that long.
Yeah.
Because I love you. I understand where you're coming from. I understand you hate my guts. God bless you, but it's for your own good. And it reached that point where you can't let women silence you in that way.
Yeah.
You're gonna be like, no, I love you. I care about you. You are my daughter. You are my this. You're my that. But we don't see the world views the same way, but I will do whatever it takes to make sure you're safe.
Yeah.
And it's not like I'm not fighting for Abby Chatfield. I mean, I would never want to hear something bad happen to her.
Yeah.
There's a lot of women out there that are crying for help in the UK right now. And we're starting to see young men stand up. I mean, that footage of the Polish guy standing on the border.
Yeah.
Saying, nah, you're not coming in after a girl was brutally raped and killed by some Venezuelan.
Yeah.
That's the spirit we need here.
Yeah, I'm hoping it I don't want to see it turn to just chaos in the streets, but I do feel the next election is going to be hard, but I almost feel it might be a bit of a middle ground one. But yeah, we're a few years behind what happened in America. We need that leader. We definitely need that leader. We need the minor parties to come together. We need so many things to happen. The TV, like the cable network, like you said, someone to push the brand a certain way. We need Gina and Clive to get along. Clive and Pauline to get along. Yeah, we need Senator Antic to, I don't know, find himself a clone who could step up and run one of these parties. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff to happen, and I just hope that it doesn't take forever, because the only other option, you and I spoke about it, is, hey, if we don't gain control, I know you talked about that the night show as well, it's going to get to a point where it's actually unlivable. It will get to a point where it's unlivable, and people will just start leaving. Yeah. And what a shame that will be to a beautiful country. I said the other day, like we've got a beautiful country, and they say it's beautiful because we've got nice cafes and nice beaches, but no one could afford the avo on toast or the parking at the beach. And so it's only going to get worse and worse and worse. I want to leave it there. Man, it's a pleasure. Thanks so much for being on the show. I'm going to put all the links into in the link here into the comment section, so you can see how to go to Joel's pages, the Arc, his personal page, and also Turning Point Australia. It's important not to wait till the last second. I think if you love this country, I will say this directly to men, if you are a husband or a father, I think you're probably at a point now where you have a duty to actually take some of this stuff on. It's not good enough now just to buy your house and raise your kids. It's actually only half the job, because if we raise our kids but there's no country for them to safely live in and grow in and flourish in, then we haven't done our role. We haven't left the place better than how we found it. So there's a bit of a call to action there, and you can get politically, you can become politically astute by going to Turning Point Australia, because Joel puts a lot of work in with his team. I learned so much in the last 6 months just by watching his content. And like I said, he's been a supporter of me, so I can tell you, he doesn't just do this for himself. He literally does it because he cares for people. Joel, thanks for being with us. I appreciate you taking the time. It was a really politically driven conversation, which I knew it would be, and I look forward to doing it next time. For those of you watching, you can always support us by subscribing, tagging, and doing all those things. Thank you, and bye-bye.